On January the 5th, 102 paddlers begun the most grueling ocean paddle ski race in the world. Amongst the competitors, the 1981 single ski winner, Oscar Chalupsky, Tony Scott, 3 times winner of the challenge, Springbok canoeist Sean Rice, American Lou Riffle competing in his 2nd challenge, Chris Grief, Springbok canoeist, Mark Lewin from Marine Surf Life Saving Club, and the only woman in the race, Alma Chalupsky. The 6th Texan Challenge started at Blue Water Bay in Port Elizabeth and ended 4 days later, 244 kilometres up the coast at Orient Beach in East London. Paddlers received last-minute instructions at King's Beach the day before the race, and 4 o'clock in the morning tension mounted and wishes of overcast conditions and a good following wind may just be answered. First off are the single skis. And to follow 15 minutes later, the doubles. 19-year-old Brett Worth from North Narrabeen Life Saving Club. Paul Chalupsky and his daughter, Alma.
Good luck,
And favourites to win the doubles, the very experienced combination of Tony Scott and Dave McCormick. The first day's paddle requires the paddlers to pass between the islands of Jahil and St. Croix, and they must then pass on the shore side of the NSRI boat, close enough to enable the skis number to be recorded. Paddlers whose numbers are not recorded are penalised by the officials. Leading the doubles, Paddy Quinlan and Herman Chalupsky from Durban Surf Life Saving Club. Close behind, Tony Scott and Dave McCormick. Woody Cape. A beautiful beach far below the high sand dunes welcomed the paddlers in after battling with heavy seas and strong winds. First in was Oscar Chalupsky, who later learned that he had incurred a 30-minute penalty for not being spotted by the NSRI boat. Cruel luck for Oscar, who maintained he had passed well inside the boat and would have sliced more than 45 minutes off the old record. A similar fate awaited the first double ski of Paddy Quinlan and Herman Chalupsky, Oscar's younger brother.
Coming in at the finish, we got wiped out by mid-break, swam for about 6 or 7 minutes, came in to find we were the first double, and we were really surprised. Approximately 5 minutes later, Scott McCormick came in, so we had whittled down a lead, which would have been about 10 minutes, by swimming for 6 or 7 minutes. We were really pleased, only to find that later in the day that we had incurred a 30-minute penalty through missing the boat.
9 singles and 13 doubles were each penalised 30 minutes due to this rule being imposed to maximise the safety precautions. Scott and McCormick found themselves off course and lost up to 20 minutes paddling back to the NSRI boat. This did not deter them, however, from setting a new record time of 5 hours and 22 minutes for the first day. Sean Rice lost valuable time after a bad wipeout, and paddlers generally found it difficult coming in at Woody Cape.
There was quite a big groundswell just before Woody Cape, and conditions were very rough, and it makes your stability a bit suspect at some stages, so your wrists take a bit of strain, but we'd rather have that sort of condition than a headwind, which makes the day much longer.
Mark Lewin shot into first place with a record time of 5 hours and 53 minutes and held a slender lead of 3 minutes over Sean Rice from Pirate Surf Club, who, after swimming into shore, had to retrieve his ski further down the beach. Glenn McGregor from Clifton made good time and was also 3 minutes behind the leader. During the 4 days, Dr. Tim Noakes and a medical team from UCT were on hand to examine paddlers for fluid losses and strain.
What I noticed was that after the long day, the first long day of 80 kilometers, the top paddlers were not as fatigued as would be runners who'd raced that distance. So I would say that any single day itself is not as tough as the same distance running. However, when you put 3 or 4 days together, then it becomes very, very strenuous. And I think the third and the fourth day are pretty tough, and there is where the real slog begins, and that's where it does differ from running.
Chris Rieff and Garth Waters beach into second place 20 minutes behind Scott and McCormick. Conditions on the first day certainly took their toll, but the more experienced paddlers made good use of the strong southwesterly winds and the big swells to set very good times. 9 single ski and 4 double ski competitors were forced to withdraw, and only 2 double skis were disqualified for not making the time limit. Everyone was down at the beach at 4:30 and armed with sunscreen lotions, flares, water bottles and loads of encouragement. The singles again set out before the faster double ski competitors. A light westerly wind had blown continuously throughout the night, and the paddlers faced a good following wind to get them from Woody Cape to Bushman's River for the 10-minute stopover, and then on to Port Alfred and the end of the second leg. But first, they had to negotiate the rough surf. Damages to skis were costly, and for some competitors, their challenge had ended.
Rescue 6, tequila. We are up with the leaders, and the Surfski is about 2.5 kilometers ahead of the next single ski, and we're going to double back now and have a look, see what that problem is in the surf line. Over.
Oscar Chalupski had set out determinedly to erase his 30-minute penalty and overtake Rice, McGregor and Mark Lewin, the overnight leader. Bushman's River, only 21 kilometers from Woody Cape, could be reached comfortably inside 2.5 hours, as there were good running swells, and with the wind behind the paddlers, records looked likely to fall again on the second day. Bushman's River, a compulsory 10-minute stopover, was reached by Chalupski enjoying the conditions in 2 hours and 4 minutes.
I got a very good break at Woody Cape. The surf was breaking about 10 feet out there. I was just lucky. I took my chances. I sprinted out and I managed to get out without any trouble. Going along, we had a nice sort of offshore breeze, which made it a bit choppy, but still it was in our favour.
Scott and McCormack also made very good use of conditions and arrived in 1 hour and 58 minutes.
Thank you. You won the Australian event.
Overnight leader Mark Lewin had already lost his lead to Chalupsky, but was certainly not downhearted.
A bit of difficulty getting out, like most of the guys. Bad visibility as the surf was big. But generally nobody can complain about the water. It was very good racing water. Runs, clear, big surf at the breaks, but nothing that the experienced guys couldn't manage quite comfortably.
Chalupsky completed the second leg of 24 kilometers in 1 hour and 52 minutes, placing him comfortably in the lead with a 26-minute overall advantage over Sean Rice, who moved up into second spot, ahead of Mark Lewin. Scott and McCormack arrived in a record time of 3 hours and 52 minutes for the second day. Sean Rice, who swam in on the first day after a bad wipeout, picked up 8 minutes on Mark Lewin. And Quinlan and Chalupsky unfortunately picked up a further penalty of 20 minutes for outside assistance at sea. Chris Rieff and Garth Waters consolidated their second place due to the misfortune of Chalupsky and Quinlan. They were now 12 minutes ahead of Capel and DeCourt, but still 44 minutes adrift of the leaders Scott and McCormack. Gary Capel of Blue Water Bay Surf Lifesaving Club and partner Jack DeCourt, who felt the pressure on the second leg from Bushman's River to Port Alfred, picked up 2 places, moving into third position. McGregor, who was 5th in the 1981 challenge, picked up 2 minutes on Mark Lewin, who was now managing to hold on grimly to third position overall, 1 minute ahead of McGregor.
Hello.
The surf coming in at Port Alfred was deceptive, and the paddlers met with some unexpected surprises. 7 single and 2 double ski competitors withdrew from the second day, due mostly to the heavy seas of Woody Cape. Unlike the first day, when 5 single skis were inside the record, no single ski competitor was able to break Tony Scott's record of 3 hours 58 minutes, set for the second day in 1981. Oskar Chalupsky seemed set for the single title for the second successive time. But an interesting struggle was developing between McGregor and Lewin, with 1 minute separating them, and there were 2 days and 119 kilometers of back-breaking paddling remaining. The overseas competitors, apart from Lou Riffle, who was lying in 10th place, were finding the going extremely tough. Dan Mathis, former American Ironman, having received a 30-minute penalty on the first day, had picked up 6 places and was one of 5 overseas competitors still in the race at the end of the second day. The local surfers were generally enjoying the conditions, and Ian Muirhead from East London on a borrowed ski was lying in 20th place. A very strong easterly wind greeted the paddlers on the third day, and the start was delayed while the officials had the unenviable task of deciding whether or not to postpone the third stretch of 68 kilometers to Hamburg. When the go-ahead was given, the paddle to the 10-minute stopover at the Great Fish River mouth 25 kilometers away would require a superhuman effort. The headwind inevitably proved too much, and the hopes of it abating did not materialize. A parachute flare was fired at 7 o'clock in the morning and signaled the end of the third day, and paddlers were helped back to Port Alfred to decide what should be done. Paul and Alma Chalupsky were among the first to be picked up.
And we really had to push to get out, and we managed to get out without any problems. You know, we only had one wave on our head that caused any hassles, and when we got out there, it said, "Well done, Alvin." My dad doesn't congratulate anybody.
The safety officers assigned to the bike squad scouted the beaches between the Great Fish River and Port Alfred for any paddlers that had difficulties inshore. Back at Port Alfred, a vote was taken to decide whether to cancel the third day or to wait and complete the third stretch to Hamburg the following morning. 2 paddlers voted to do the third day, but the majority agreed to cancel the third stretch and push on to Hamburg and complete the 4th and final day the following morning.
We had a very strong headwind, which made conditions very difficult. The progress wasn't too good. We expected to do the first leg in 3.5 hours and the second leg in about 7.5. That would have made it about 11 hours for the front chaps. The average time would have probably been about 14 hours, and the back markers would have probably taken up to 18 hours, which becomes impractical.
It was getting quite difficult. I sat behind the double crew. I was feeling quite nice at that stage, and I probably would have made it to Fish River in about 3.5 hours. But from there on, I don't think we would have gone. It would have taken about 8.5 hours. It would have been ridiculous. The guys would have been really bombed out. Half the field would have been out.
Oh, it wasn't too bad getting out. I had probably wasted a couple of minutes. And then I had a fairly good run. I tucked in behind Chris Creop and Golf Waters, and I was cruising fairly well. But it's probably the best decision to call it off.
The paddlers, having travelled up by road to Hamburg, woke to a beautiful, clear morning. The starts were staggered at 15-minute intervals. the slower paddlers leaving first and the faster paddlers last, so that their arrivals in East London would almost coincide. The paddlers were relieved to have good paddling weather ahead of them, as were the officials who have been working tirelessly to ensure a well-organized and safe challenge. The paddlers hoped that the worst of the weather was behind them and appeared more relaxed. Greg Smith, who with Brett Worth started the morning in 10th place overall. Rocky van Gouverden paddling in a double with Dennis Banks. Glenn McGregor in 4th place, a minute behind Mark Lewin. Walter Chalupsky and his partner John Whittle lying in 8th place overall. Alan Ross from Pirates partnering Jonathan Parton and lying in 6th position. Sean Rice lying 2nd, 26 minutes behind Chalupsky. Oscar Chalupsky, with a healthy lead, looks set to improve his overall time on the last 2 legs of the challenge. With good weather and a following wind forecast, the 25 kilometers to Kids Beach and the 10-minute stopover would not present too many problems. And from Kids Beach to East London, one thing would be on the paddler's mind. This would be the last leg of the 1983 challenge. In good paddling conditions, Oskar Chalupski took full advantage and set a new record for the 4th day, completing the 2 legs in 4 hours and 15 minutes and increased his overall time to 58 minutes over Sean Rice. So for the 2nd successive challenge, Oskar Chalupski became the single ski champion in impressive style. At the end of 4 exhausting days, Chalupski, looking remarkably fresh, was met by the Mayor of East London, Councillor Errol Spring. Overall winners in the doubles, Tony Scott and Dave McCormack, again rewrote the record books by setting a time of 4 hours and 1 minute for the 4th day, and apart from the cancelled 3rd day, set a new record every day, and were more than an hour ahead of their nearest challengers, Chris Krief and Garth Waters. Sean Rice took 2nd spot in the singles, ahead of Mark Lewin, who started out late due to an upset stomach. Overall, the times set over the 3 days were generally good, but it seems that there is no equal to Oskar Chalupski in the singles and to Tony Scott and Dave McCormack in the doubles. The weather presented many problems and experiences to the paddlers in this year's challenge. Many will look forward to the 1985 challenge and carry with them vivid and unforgettable memories.
The biggest problem was at Woody Cape. I broke my rudder in the big surf going out, and by the time I got back to the beach I was about 2 kilometers down, and it was about half an hour after the start. So I had to beach my craft, run 2 kilometers up the beach, run up the hill at Woody Cape, call my seconds, ask them to bring in a replacement ski down to the bottom. By the time they eventually got the ski down to the bottom, I had managed to borrow another one. Then started an hour late. The time limit is 3 hours for about a 25 kilometer paddle. So I had 2 hours to do it in. I wouldn't have made it. I would have been 5 minutes outside the limit if it wasn't for the fact that they extended it by 15 minutes. So I made it with 10 minutes to spare. I think that was my biggest worry in the whole race, was that whether or not I was going to make it within the time limit.
Yeah, I think it was surfing on the first day. There were 3 dolphins surfing next to me and for them waiting for me. Every time I dropped off the wave, they'd actually wait and they were like squeaking to each other. And then I'd get on a wave and they would follow me, like surf with me all the time.
Oh, a 30-minute penalty they gave me. That's the main thing. And this last stretch was the hardest for me because I didn't take any water. I lost about 4 kilograms on the scale from Kids Beach here. I miscalculated how hot it was.
A huge race on the second day and paddling against the east on the 3rd day for a little while. Very memorable.
Will you do it in 85?
Maybe. That's an idea.
Well, we've got 50 minutes of penalties after the end of the 2nd day. But I really enjoyed the conditions.
It would have to be the 2nd day at Woody Cape, that morning taking off through the surf. It was enough to make a Christian out of you.